Okay, looks like we're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Ilya, and I'm here with Grandmaster's Choice. The topic of tonight's lecture is going to be punishing positional mistakes, where we're going to be looking at mostly my games, but also occasionally mixing in games from other Grandmasters. Oh, it was a video. Haha. Gotcha, Chesteroid. Anyway, we are starting off with my game against Lev Paciorkowski. I believe this game was played in the US Open of 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And over here, this position, by the way, happened from one of the lines in English opening, right? So I played English with E3, and if you guys do some digging or looking at my games in the database, you'll find out that I've played this one many times. And the tricky part about this one is that after reaching this position and after facing the move knight captures f6, Black's main response should really be to capture back with a pawn, which is a really difficult thing to do unless you know precisely what's going to happen, right? Because there are a couple of lines that may seem quite scary from the outside, right? So Black is supposed to be playing in a very aggressive manner. There's a move d5, which I believe I've faced a couple of times, but then the main line goes with Black playing e4. And eventually what's going to happen is I believe that Black, or I'm going to be sacrificing my knight this way, right? So utilizing the open g file, I'm basically going to be claiming that I don't really need the knight. I would much rather have an open g file, and then I would follow through with attack against the Black king. So as we all know, the engines make this look like an easy draw, claiming that most things Black do here will be just fine, and everything is going to end in a draw, and everyone is going to be happy. But in reality, during a practical game, unless you know the precise defense, it's going to be very tricky to play this as Black. Hello, I'm Manny. Welcome. So over here, after facing the capture on f6, my opponent decided to save himself some trouble and recapture back with a queen, which I already consider an inaccuracy, right? Because essentially we're reaching a similar looking position where Black is going to have a long-term disadvantage, right? So the pawns are separated. Now Black has two pawn islands, right? The g pawn moved away towards the center. Black now has double pawns on the f file, and the h7 pawn is separated. So this also means that most endgames, especially the pawn endgame, it's very likely that the pawn endgame was just simply going to be lost for Black because of this fact, because more pawn islands, the separated pawn on h7, and the king will always have to stand near the h7 pawn so that Black doesn't lose it. So knowing that, I proceeded. Obviously, I still need to get my pieces out, right? Because as of right now, Black is massively ahead in development, so I need to follow up on that. So I played a4. Bishop a5, either bishop a5 or bishop c5 would lead to the same exact position, right? It doesn't matter. b4, bishop b6, and bishop b2. So over here, my opponent chooses the correct approach. He goes ahead and plays a5, kind of trying to bait me into capturing an a5. Obviously, once I capture an a5, I'm going to have a separated pawn, an additional pawn island of my own, right? The pawn on a3 becomes weak. And so it makes it, a bit trickier for me to play. Plus, with Black bishop returning to a5, I'm going to have I might be having some issues in the center. So I wasn't quite, looking to do that. At the same time, I can't really defend the pawn on b4, right? If I play bishop c3 here, that's going to cost me a pawn after an easy tactic. A takes b4, a takes b4, rook takes e1, bishop takes e1, knight b4, and I lose a pawn. So with all that being said, my pawn is under attack. I don't want to take, I can't defend the pawn with bishop c3, so the only other reasonable or logical decision would be to play b5, which is like what I did. My opponent played knight e7, and I played d4. d4 is a move that immediately attempts to apply some pressure in the center. Right now, as I've just began attacking the e5, I'm I no longer need to worry myself about some f5, f4s. Right now the f6 pawn is stuck in place because black has to keep defending the e5. If black makes a critical decision, right, because playing e4 would be a critical choice, right, solidifying the pawn structure. Now I can likely reroute my knight to one of the outposts. F4 seems pretty good to me, or maybe even somewhere to g3, trying to apply pressure against the e4. I'm not sure how bad playing e4 would be, but at the same time, if you think about it, black can always play e4, and they don't really want to force things unless they can kind of get something out of it. So d4, yeah, so DM, you're asking whether d4 is more ambitious. I am indeed behind in development, but if we think about what can black really do to punish me for being behind, right? The queens are off the board, so I'm not really all that worried about my king being attacked, right? Usually, if you're behind in development, one of the biggest issues is that your pieces start lacking space, which doesn't seem to be the case here. And the secondary issue is that your king, because your opponent gets more pieces out, your king, gets in trouble faster, or may potentially get in trouble. So none of those things are actually the case here. And despite the fact that I am behind in development, I'm actually feeling very comfortable as I have no weaknesses, no real weaknesses. My next move is probably going to be long castle, right, to hide the king, bring the a1 rook into the game. Then bishop is to follow, and if black can't really find a way to immediately punish me for being behind, then that's okay. E takes d4 would indeed open the position, but in a long run, it makes black's pawn structure even weaker, right? Because now by capturing on d4, black gets essentially 3 pawn islands, right? Because the f7 and f6 pawns are now separated from the rest of the queenside pawns, and it makes it more difficult for black to do anything with these pawns, right? If the pawns decide to go up, I can easily, if I don't want to deal with any f4s, right, I can easily just play g3, and this pawn is now stuck on f5 pretty much forever. I have strong doubts that black would ever consider taking on d4 because it gives up a bishop pair advantage, right? So this is probably going to be like a last resort for black if things go really wrong. But at this point, I'm not really being attacked, right? My position is safe. My king is going to castle the very next move. Black has, once again, a very easy target for my pieces, right? The pawn on f5 is the main target, and I have a bishop pair advantage. Hello, Damien. Oh, it's a Continental Open?
That's what it looked like to me. Did you have it?
I might have gotten it wrong. I don't see the tournament where this game was played. I thought it was US Open, but I could be wrong. It's been a while ago. So black doesn't really want to take on d4, and over here my opponent makes. Let me get rid of all these arrows. Shouldn't have that many. Okay, there we go. So at this point, my opponent decided to play it fast, and he I guess what he did was an attempt to force me to open things up, right? So my opponent went. No, never mind. Sorry, it's not here. My opponent went a4, which is a reasonable move, although it's hard to kind of think about the use of this move, especially because, well, bishop is clearly trying to get to a5, but my king is leaving the e1 because I'm castling long, right? So I castled long, and now bishop coming to a5, I guess would take away the e1 square from my rooks, although I'm not sure if my rooks would want to go to e1, right? Because if you guys remember, after black captures on d4, in most cases I was going to recapture with a knight, meaning that the e file doesn't actually get open, right? So I kind of have no reason to have the rook on e1. And I feel like I would much rather have it on g1, which may seem a bit strange, but one of my ideas is definitely to do a run on the g file. Once again, I'm not sure if that's exactly what I would go for, because this plan involves me trading off the weak pawn on f6, right? But at the same time, it would allow me to open up the g file. So just like a possibility. Okay, let's go back. Yeah, so a4, long castle, and over here, yeah, this is where my opponent c5. you were thinking about pushing the h pawn. Yeah, I mean, I could have definitely gone for h7, h4, but my problem with h4 is always that black can just play h5, and that's likely how far my pawn is going to go. Opponent is about to do positional mistakes, they're going to be punished. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. So here my opponent played the move c5. Okay, so DM is saying that he would assume that doing long castle would be a bit trickier because black can open things up with c6. By the way, the c6 is a good attempt. I believe that I saw the move c6 during the game, and I was planning to react with this. Once again, it looks quite scary, right? Because I'm advancing on a side where I'm supposedly weaker, right? My king is there, so I shouldn't be very comfortable opening things up. But actually, this is purely a tactical approach, right? Once we calculate, we'll see that this tactic is actually going to be in my favor. If black just goes back, it costs him the pawn, right? Because I'm going to end up winning the e5, and I'm going to end up winning e5 either way, right? So black is going to take on c5. I'm not taking on c5, I'm taking on e5, and now I'm essentially, we swapped, right? Now black has double pawns in the c file as opposed to having double pawns in the f file. Now here, yeah, black is in quite a predicament. My next move is fairly simple. I'm planning to play bishop c4, and I feel like I'm going to play bishop c4 regardless of what black does. If black goes bishop e6, I guess bishop c4 is still a possibility. Although in this case, black manages to win a tempo, right? So now black can probably capture on b5. I will take back with a bishop. And as you can see, my king is still fairly safe because there is nothing going on the c file. If anything, if black tries to push the c pawn by playing rook c8, I can just block everything with knight c4. And then I'm going to try to use my king side pawn majority advantage by pushing the pawns like so. Luckily, queens are off the board. Yes, that's exactly why I just take the bishop and zigzag the knight to fork things. Okay, 1 second. So, at which position are you talking about, Chesteroid? Can't we just take the bishop? Well, oh, you mean over here? Oh, hats off to you, Chesteroid. Well, very well done. Very well spotted. Look at that. Although I'm not sure how good this is. Let's continue calculating, right? So, oh wait, knight d5. No, still not simple, right? Not simple, right? Knight d5. We could definitely remove a defender, right? The knight is a defender. If we play e4, black has an intermezzo, right? The rook a d8. And now if I take, remember we did give up a pawn, right? So if I do this trade, I better have something to show for it. Knight d5 looks good. Yeah, knight d5 looks good because here after rook captures d5, e captures, knight captures b6, rook d8. The knight is kind of stuck. And now let's say rook d1. I was slightly worried here about something. Maybe about d4. No, I still believe that you're smart. It's just that we need to find a way to make it work. Although even here, these kinds of endgames where you have two white pieces for a rook can sometimes get tricky because rooks, in general, rooks are more agile in endgames as there are a lot of open files. So that seems to be the case here, although actually let's go ahead and see what's going on here with the help of an engine. I'm not sure if you guys can see the engine. Oh, you probably can. But the engine thinks that white is better, but not like catastrophically better, right? That's it says something. Let's see if we're not missing anything here along the way. No, we're not. We're just clean. But you see, if you don't go for it, on the other hand, if you just play bishop captures b5, oh, but here I didn't make the very obvious move. Yeah, knight d7. I should be making knight d7 with my eyes closed. Knight c4 is not as strong, so I guess I did manage to find some stronger opportunities using the engine's help. Been a long day. I apologize. I don't see things as clearly anymore. Only lasted for 20 seconds. Only lasted for 20 seconds. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but this is what would have happened had black tried to play c6 and open things up. So I guess because of this, my opponent was really afraid, as he told me after the game, that he was really afraid of the c5 breaks through. and he just didn't want to deal with it anymore. He went ahead and played c5 himself. You guys can probably see the issue with this move, right? This move essentially just kills the bishop, but that was also partly my opponent's idea, to just make sure that the position remains closed, so that his weak king and the double pawns are not as, so if the position remains closed and these weaknesses remain, it's not as critical, because in close position I'm going to have a harder time exploiting those. He pushed c5, that's correct. And this move actually just almost loses on the spot. So what did I do? With queens off the board, I guess it makes a lot more sense. Yeah, this line is also engine proven. Like this looks like this line just works because it's a very concrete case where we are so behind in development, but our opponent cannot punish us, right? It's only a mistake if we get punished for it, right? Practically speaking, right? If your opponent has something practically to make our decision to delay development an issue. Can I remind you of what opening this pawn structure came from? This came from a rare opening line in English. Unfortunately, I don't have the whole game here. I'm not sure why that is, but this is the position we started from. This is E3 English. It went like this: C4, E5, knight C3, knight F6, knight F3, knight C6. I played E3. My opponent played bishop B4, queen C2, castle short, knight D5, rook E8, queen F5. D6 was the final move, and this is how we got here. So I hope that helps. Let's go back to here, and yeah, so I took on E5. D5 is, yeah, so my concern with playing D5 was that exactly that thing, that I don't have enough going on in this position to make, yeah, I guess you guys are right. We could try to play D5 with incoming to E4 and F4. Yeah, that's true. We could try to breach, but once again, if we take on E5, if you guys think about it, we already have a perfectly placed rook on the D file, right? If you just take on E5, our rook is already in the best place it can ever be. And actually here, we could do a little bit of a calculation exercise about the possibility of me playing rook D6, right? Because it's a double attack after all, and if that's all there was to it, then I would have just be winning by now. Unfortunately, it's not working, right? Because black has bishop c7, rook captures f6, and the rook is actually trapped on f6. So black can go ahead and just pick it up. King g7, the only place the rook can go to is f4, and knight g6, and yeah, my rook is gone. It does trap the rook, I manage, yeah. So this was my opponent's masterfully crafted trap. Unfortunately for him, I'm completely disinterested in going for any tactical bouts. All I want to do is I want to exploit the weaknesses, right? So the weak pawn on f6. I've been thinking about how to get to it. The g4 g5 plan crossed my mind, right? G4, taking advantage of the fact that black can never take, right? This guy is gone after h3. But then I realized that maybe I could do it in a more effective way, because g4, black can just allow me to play g5, right? g5 takes, and then what did I really do, right? I freed black from his double pawns. d5, e4, and rook somewhere on the third ring looks okay. It does look okay, but we're actually just going to be winning here straight away. So while the plan was just keeping the things closed and then slowly bringing in the pieces to kind of trying to slowly suffocate black, could work. But at this point, we are already in position where we can take immediate advantage of black's weaknesses, right? We don't have to play this slow no more, right? We can just take on e5 and then go knight d2, correct? That's what I did. You guys can probably see the notation, I assume, right? So you guys can see what happened. I played knight d2, transferring the knight to e4. And my knight being on e4 is actually a pretty big deal, because from e4 it can sometimes go to d6. It's applying a lot of pressure against the f6 pawn. So my opponent just did not have to. You're saying knight d2, knight g6, and f5 is coming, I'm not sure how you're going to play f5 here. So I'm going to play, let's say, knight e4. Yeah. So at this point, I'm threatening to take. I'm not sure what the defense is. Like, I think you're just losing a pawn at least, right? So, wait, no, I'm not threatening to take. No, I'm not, because there's a black and block this check, right? So rook e6 is there. So I'm not threatening that, but I might be threatening something else. Let me see. Well, plus, what is going to be your next move? So I can actually just take it at this point. I can actually just go ahead and play bishop e2 and politely ask you, okay, what's your next move, sir? Go ahead and make your next move. It may seem like f5 is a good idea, but I think in the long run, it's probably going to be more detrimental to black than anything, right? Because I play knight d6, let's say. My next move is going to be f4. I'm going to be continuously applying pressure. And when things are going to get open up, my pieces are better accustomed to the change. My pieces are going to be better accustomed to the pawn trades in the center, right? I just have better pieces. Black actually has this rook on f8, on a8, does absolutely nothing. The bishop is stuck on c8, right? Bishop is unable to move because b7 is always hanging. So at this point, I just have better prepared pieces for the trades, right? So if I play f4, I'm going to then trade on e5, play rook f1, f5 is going to be in trouble. Looks bad for black. It's just a matter of technique. Yeah, most of these positions do look extremely bad for black, but at the same time, there are still some things black can do, right? So just like my opponent who played bishop f5, basically putting this idea onto a hold. Asking your opponent what's your next move, so there's also a helpful technique to gain time on the clock and gives them the possibility of making a mistake. Yeah. Usually, most of your wins are going to be coming from your opponent's side, right? So your opponent is going to be the main contributor towards your victory, right? They have to go wrong somewhere, right? If you keep asking them questions, if you keep giving them rope, right, they will eventually. That's what we should be striving to do, right? We should be striving to apply so much pressure that our opponent is going to be continuously stressed out, and it's not. It sounds pretty bad, right? What we're doing sounds very mean, but that's how chess works. We are all really nice guys in real life. We're the nicest people in the world, but when it comes to playing, we need to be extremely mean, right? We need to keep telling our opponent, okay, you can't do what you want, right? We're gonna make, or hopefully we're gonna make our opponent's life a living hell while they play during the game, not outside of it. Free rope. Okay, g4 now, that's correct. So now we're just essentially, once again, using the fact that black can never take on g4 because there's always going to be a pin with rook g1, so bishop g6 and h4. Now the black's white-squared bishop is in trouble. Honestly, my opponent, I would say, kind of panicked here. He played h5, right? The move h5 does what I've been trying to do, just without me actually having to do anything, right? I've been trying to open up the g file, and I was ready. I was fully prepared to play g5 to do that. I was fully prepared to rid black off of their double pawns to do that. But now I'm getting it open up without even having to trade the black's double pawns away, right? So that's a win-win. We have a mystery person here. Who is a mystery person? Okay, I'm not sure who you're talking about. I can't really see myself anywhere. The screens are all dark. I'm nervous. I don't know how I look like on stream.
I don't know. They might be.
Yeah,
there's a mod in here. I don't know.
Oh, okay. You would imagine it's a strategy primarily used by a stronger player against a weaker player, though, right? I don't think it would make a lot of sense to use that strategy against a higher rated player. Well, no. I mean, if you, it's a strategy that's used in a situation where you are in command. It doesn't have to mean that you're stronger. It just has to mean that what it means is that you are at a position of knowledge and you have more understanding than your opponent. You don't have to be stronger. You can still play someone who is stronger than you, rating wise, or he's stronger than you in a certain type of style. But if you get them into a a place where you're very comfortable, and this is definitely one of those cases, then this is how you win, right? Would you make an exchange of exchanges? Wait, what? Wait, what do you mean exchange of exchanges? You mean after bishop captures h5, would they play knight e4? Is that what you're asking? Bishop h5 did not happen. I was planning to go knight e4. That's correct. But I think I can get more than just exchange of exchanges, because after king, like, it's hard to imagine where the king is gonna go. If it goes to f8, I actually have this check now, and I'm gonna make it really difficult for black to figure out where the king is gonna go. If it goes to g7, I can take on e5. Otherwise, I can take on b6. I can check on g1. There's a lot of things going really well for me here. So I don't have to take on e8. I can even go ahead and play rook g1, right? Because there's actually no, maybe not. There's rook d8. Yeah, so that'll be a bit too much. But there are a couple of other things I can do. Hi, all just joined. What positional mistakes are we focusing on? Well, so far this is game number 1. Black did make a big mistake, or a couple, I guess. The first inaccuracy Black made was getting double pawns and going into an endgame with it. And then the second inaccuracy more of a mistake that happened was Black playing c5 and essentially killing off their dark squared bishop while also allowing me to have my pieces exactly where they want to be, right? So in this case, I can put a lot of pressure against the f6 pawn as well as the d6 square by just bringing my knight over to e4. So my opponent felt like it's a bad idea to let it happen. He played bishop f5, and after g4, bishop g6, h4, I kept following the bishop with my pawns. H6 would have been, a slightly more sturdy way, but after h5, bishop h7, f4, captures. The funny thing about this is that even if Black manages to defend this pawn somehow, which by the way is going to be very difficult to do without playing f5, let's say king g7, now I have two very cool ways probably to just end the game right away. I can play f5, which was my original intention. f5 just kills the Black's light squared bishop. Now Black is playing down a piece because they can never get the bishop out. Or g5. g5 would be another way, but no, that doesn't look as cool. And yeah, it may win me a pawn, let's say, but I would much rather have my opponent's pieces dead to rights than having them alive and kicking. And here, even though I'm probably still objectively winning because I have an extra pawn, my pieces are still better than Black's. But when your opponent's pieces are able to rejoin, are able to come back to life, then anything can happen. You can screw up. So you better just make sure your opponent's pieces are unable to move, period, so you don't have to worry about anything till the rest of it. Thanks for answering the chat's questions. Wait, what? Am I not supposed to be doing that? What? Why do I have the chat box open then? All right. So h5 happened. g5 would have been amazing. Yeah, g5 would be good enough. Oh, f5. Okay, yeah, f5. Okay, so h5 happened, and here once again my opponent did not take on h5. He played bishop to h7. I guess just really committing to his bishop remaining on this diagonal to stop me from playing e4. But once again, I just basically told him that, okay, well, at this point I'm already up material, right? I'm up a pawn, my bishop is coming out onto a long diagonal, I'm beginning to attack b7. My opponent does not have counterplay, right? I'm not being attacked, so if my opponent keeps losing material without getting anything to show for it, I'm just gonna win. Just gonna capture, I'm just gonna catch them all, right? Just like the Pokemon song. So rook a b8 and knight to e4. Despite the fact that it's gonna force the trade, right? I'm getting the bishop pair advantage. It's still it's a crushing advantage, right? I have so many ideas to make progress. I can play f4 to break the pawn chain and open up my bishop. I can play rook g1 followed by h6 and rook g7. There's just too many threats. Now I'm beginning to threaten rook d6, right? So many things for Black to worry about. So my opponent, as a result, ended up losing very quickly after king g7, rook g1 check, king h8, and rook d6, and it's basically Black is almost getting mated, right? I pick up f6, and rook h6 is a checkmate threat. So My opponent decided that it would be pointless to try and survive here, and he resigned after move 25. That's right, the widespread bishop is putting in a lot of work controlling all the important squares, the f5, the h7. So yeah. This guy's talking too much about chess for my taste. Well, what? Okay. You guys wanna have some life story? It happened in 1972. No, okay, no. I'll leave that to Yasser. Yasser tells amazing stories. You guys should, if you guys didn't watch any of Yasser's Seravan streams, I strongly advise you to watch some recaps, because Yasser is just an amazing human being. He has a wonderful voice, amazing stories to tell, a lot of experience. He's a chess grandmaster as well. So if I were to choose which streams to watch, Yasser's streams, anytime. Okay, so this was game number 1. How am I doing time-wise? Oh my god, I'm doing horribly, as always. I apologize, I'm taking forever. So, you know, let us go ahead and move on to the next game. It's probably going to be the last game I show you guys, but, you know, hopefully it's going to be useful for you as well. So over here, another game of mine. I was playing International Master Erik Santarius. And in this position, Erik. Oh, maybe I should keep the notation hidden from you guys. Oh, that doesn't sound like a bad idea.
See it on screen.
Oh, they can't, because I can see it on this screen. Okay, so nobody. Oh, okay. Oh, never mind then. All right.
You're great.
I was thinking that maybe it's going to be a good idea for you guys to see what went wrong. So Erik in this position played the move knight g5. I'm going to remove these arrows in a second. There you go. So the move knight g5 was kind of eyeballing a couple of ideas, right? There's knight takes e6, there's knight e4, trying to fork my pieces and maybe get a bishop pair advantage, right? So what do you guys think the problem with this move was? Let's see if you guys can figure this one out.
Do you remember where this game was played?
This game was played in Philadelphia International of 2019, if I were to guess. I see queen h6, I see queen g6. Well, the move, yeah, so first of all, let's address these responses one by one, right? So if queen h6, to me, this looks like a one-move threat, right? You're threatening to take on h2, so what if black just goes h3, right? I'm really not seeing the follow-up. Plus, what you did really is you placed your queen on a discovery, right? There's a discovery possibility, right? Your queen has been x-rayed, and now you probably have to move it away. So I would say that the Imani's suggestion, which is to play queen g6, might be a little bit, well, how people are saying, more sensible, but at the same time, it's probably actually worse than queen h6, because you guys are missing bishop c2, right? And as you can tell, it's probably even a bigger issue than having the queen on h6 now. Queen g6, no, queen g6 does have a threat, kind of, right? The threat is to play something like h6 and politely ask the knight to retreat, right? We are after all applying pressure on g2, but obviously bishop c2 just kind of ends us, right? f5, this is not the kind of complications we want to go into, right? We are definitely an underdog in all these complications. We're losing a pawn, and what for, right? So, any other suggestions? Queen h6 and queen g6, good tries, but not very effective. Anything else you guys can think of? Rook a to e8 looks natural. Rook a to e8 does look natural. But what about the knight e4? Would it be okay giving me a bishop pair advantage? Although you're not quite doing it, right? Because you have queen g6, and I can't really take on d6. Okay, that's better. Rook a8 is a better option, I would say. But are you sure you want to use the a8 rook and not the f8 rook? Because you need to have like plan for your other rook too. Like I have really strong doubts that you would be happy with it being stuck on f8, right? c5 looks interesting, yeah, it does, but yeah, white can just take and then a bunch of white pieces are hanging. Yeah. That was my second question. Okay. Yeah, if I were you, if you are trying to play rook e8, you could do it just using the f8 rook, right? Just rook e8. Knight e4 isn't really a threat, right? Because we always have queen g6. But if knight e4 is never really a threat. Wait. Hear me out. So knight g5. So we just kind of unintentionally decided that knight e4 is not really a threat. What about knight e6? Come on, think about this, guys. What is the threat of knight g5 again? Is it knight e6? Is it knight e4? Which one is it? What is this move threatening? Can white? Let's make a dummy move. Can white take here? Look at this. Takes, and oh no, we're losing the knight. But who cares about the knight, right? Yeah, f2 is hanging. Knight e6, no, not a threat, right? That capturing knight e6 just loses the game for white. Knight e4 not a threat, knight e6 not a threat, so what in the world is knight doing on g5? How about we just politely ask it, like, why are you on g5? What are you doing there? And by the way, I tricked you guys yet again, because knight e4 runs into another tactic. By the way, you guys would probably be very, very surprised to learn that at this point, knight e4 is the best response for white. My opponent realized that the knight actually doesn't have a good place to go to right now and played knight h3, and this was the first real positional mistake. Knight g5 was an accuracy, right? Because after knight g5, white can still be okay, but there is something wrong with knight e4 as well. I guess this is what my opponent got afraid of, and because of this next sequence, tactical sequence, knight e4 was not played. And yet, practically speaking, it was probably white's best chance at this point. What did my opponent miss? Bishop takes h2. Well, queen h4, right? Knight takes d6, removing one of the attackers. So bishop takes h4. Exactly. King takes h4. Queen h4 check. Double attack. King goes back. Bishop takes e4. There's no tricks. White does not have any tricks to win our bishop on e4. g3 runs into checkmate on h1. Right? And yet, this position still provides white with the best practical chance because white does have a bishop pair advantage, right? So if white plays his cards well enough, we're going to have something like this happening. Well, where even in the end, white is just down a pawn, but because white has a bishop pair advantage, they do have some sneaky little threats that we would have to deal with, and looks like white should be able to survive in the long run, right? A single pawn is it's not big enough of an advantage to claim that black is winning now. You're a little bit behind, but c5. Okay, one sec. c5. So we have to probably go all the way back to look at c5, right? So this is the place. Okay, so c5, dc, and the queen takes c3 is the question. Let's see. I'm not seeing tactics very well tonight, guys. What I do see is that we have a couple of easy, like, if I just don't want to calculate for white, what I could do is I could just play bishop e3. Once again, I don't know if I might be missing something. I don't see what I'm missing yet, but there might be something I'm missing. I'm just connecting these guys. Whatever piece takes on c5, I'm going to take whatever's left, right? So if black bishop is the one taking on c5, I'm going to take on d7. If the knight takes on c5, I'm going to take the bishop. So queen h5 would be very tragic end, right, to white's balade. I'm not sure if that's a word, but I think bishop e3 is just simple. I don't see why it doesn't work. I'm gonna cheat and ask the engine. Engine proves my suspicions. It does work. +3. So there you have it. You didn't see bishop e3. Yeah. Is there any other way? No. Oh, I found the best move. Oh. Actually, no. I felt like this could also work, but it feels like it works because we have a lot of pieces right where they need to be. Oh, actually, the queen gets trapped. Look at this. Oh my god. All right. Yeah. It wasn't very difficult, but I feel like just winning a piece would be less complicated to see. And it probably doesn't recommend queen h5. Yeah, that's true. So over here, knight g5, pointless because can't go, right? So after h6, even though white should have still played knight e4 or gone back to f3, my opponent decided to misplace the knight and put it onto h3. And here came another very important moment in the game because the white's knight being stuck on the edge is white's only issue. So if I don't address this, if I don't take advantage of this issue fast enough, white will find a way to bring the knight back into the game. So for example, like g3 knight f4 or f3 knight f2. So the knight is going to return to the normal squares, right? So I need to make sure I'm keeping that guy there for as long as possible. Queen g6 once again runs into f3, and this is where the knight is going to actually, now it cannot even get back in from f4 once you play queen g6. Yes, we did force white to play f3, right? f3, it's like playing f6, right? If you guys know Ben Feingold's suggestions, he suggests to never play f6 or f3 respectively, right? Depending on which side you're playing from. It's kind of like that, right? f3 is not a very useful move here. It does weaken white's king. We can maybe look into some c5s now, right? As the diagonal is weakened, we can try to open things up from that side. So not bad, but we can do better. And let me show you what I did. I played the move queen h4. Very important move in my opinion. This move allows me to never play f3 even if it's mate in 1. Yeah, I've heard stories about people just following his advice to, to the ward and actually not giving checkmate in 1 because it's f3. The knight won't move now. Exactly, that's exactly the point. Now what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure the knight is out of the game for as long as possible so that I can make maximum out of my other pieces, right? If I begin attacking, like my attack is very, very likely to succeed now as the knight is so badly placed on h3. So let's see what happened. For some reason I have f4 here. I guess f4 is, well, is not a, I'm not sure why I have it as a main line because this is not what happened in the game, but this is something that white should have done instead of what they did in the game. So f4, once again, attempting to bring the knight back, even though actually it doesn't do that, right? Because f4 is hanging, and this is why queen h4 is such an important move because I can just proceed with knight f6, and once again, my plans are, but they're not limited to knight g4 and c5. I'm pretty sure I can do like other things, like maybe a5, a4, and maybe applying pressure against f4. So a lot of things going well for me here. Once again, knight f2 is impossible for now, for the time being, because of bishop captures f4. This loses for white immediately, right on the spot. Queen g2 and bishop f3 winning the queen. What if f3 here? Well, we just gone over it, right? f3 is one of those moves, but what are you exactly trying to do with f3? You're not trying to play knight f2, are you? This is why you have to play f4. If you're trying to move the knight back, you have to block my dark squared bishop, otherwise you can't, right? The h2 is hanging. So f4 was actually white's best try here, but my opponent instead played rook b1. I gave it a little bit of a think because there is some bishop takes e6 hanging in the air, but then I quickly realized that I can just let it happen. Bishop takes e6 is going to run into what response? Let's see how well you guys see tactics. What do you guys think I planned here? My bishops are like martial bishops, but I'm not down a pawn. Yeah, exactly. And this is why I love this. I love this position for me. Plus, I was also ahead on time a lot. So the game was just going as well as it could have been. We take the bishop. And no, wait, one sec. You're saying take the bishop and queen g4? No. Queen g4 leads to an even trade, right? You can't. Plus, you're losing the bishop on b7. Remember, that's the part of the tactic. White wants us to take, because then they're missing bishop back immediately. Bishop e4 or bishop g2? Which one of the two? You guys basically all found the two critical responses. It's either bishop e4 or bishop g2, right? Which one is? Bishop g2 isn't that good. You want to take on g2, but then see the follow-up. Okay, so you guys are all voting for bishop e4 then? Aziz, I'm gonna try to come back to your question in a moment. Just gonna try to finish things here with this tactic. So okay, I'm gonna take it. I'm gonna take it as you guys saying that bishop e4 is correct, and lo and behold, you found a way to lose the game. Congratulations, because after g3, the queen is trapped. And the only place our queen can go back to is h5, which leads to this trade, and then this trade. And in the end of the day, we are missing 2 pawns in this endgame. Not again. Yes, again. Yes. I got him. And the bishop g2 that supposedly has no follow-up is the correct way. Because despite the fact that there might not be an immediate follow-up, look at this guy. This king on g2 is so bad. It doesn't even matter that we're not up anything. We're going to be winning material. There's no way this king is going to survive our attack. Let me give you an example. Knight e4, attacking f2. So a logical decision would be to defend it. Well, actually, it's hard to do even here, because we're also attacking the c3. If white tries f3, we have a ginormous tactic, which is bishop takes h2. Now f takes e4 just very quickly loses. No, we don't even have to take on c3, Manny. We don't even have to, because we are checkmating. We have 3 pieces attacking, it's enough, because of how exposed the white king is. It's enough, we don't need no more. Rook g6, trying to stop us from playing queen g3, but we say no, we want to play queen g3, no matter what. Takes here, queen g3, king h1, and just h takes g5, with our next move being queen h3, moving the bishop, and it's just checkmating. That's that. Hello, my Chisara. Welcome. Okay, so let's go back to can I? Wait, I cannot scroll the chat.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Hi, yeah. Okay, well, we lost the question. Aziz, I believe it was the name.
I can find it.
Yeah. The question was something.
Yeah, he said you can't sack a pawn to free your knight with f3 d5, and after black takes with the pawn, then knight f2.
Well, okay. So f3 d5. So is this the position that we are referring to? Let's see. Maybe here, f3. How is d5 going to be helpful? I'm not quite sure. So because d5 will just take, right? This bishop is not getting blocked, right? Well, right? I don't really see how this sacrifice would help us free up the knight, right? So it doesn't look like it's unless you're talking about some other position as these. If so, do let me know. Okay, so this is why after rook b1, knight f6, I was really not afraid of white capturing on e6. It's still not too late to try and play f4, I guess, or f3, but my opponent didn't want to do that. He just did not want to create any weaknesses in his position whatsoever, thinking that the knight on h3 is okay and is going to be fine, and it's solid right now, and hopefully it's going to remain solid until the rest of the game. So we made a couple of normal looking moves because I can't really win anything immediately. I didn't want to play knight g4. Well, here I can't, right? Because checkmate in 1. Duh. But I think at some point I could, but yeah, it's just f4. White can always play f4 and kind of defend the h2. So I didn't really want to play knight g4 at any moment because I felt like my knight could be used for some other, maybe even tactics involving the e4 square. I'm now allergic to peanut butter. Yeah, that's unlucky. All right, well, next. Okay, bishop d2. c5, right? So going back to my original idea of breaking through in the center, it was c5, rook d1, bishop c7. Now, bishop c7 was, or not yet, over here. Here I got a little bit carried away because I saw my bishops and I was like, oh my god, my bishops are great. I want to play like, you know, like who was the inventor of this famous double bishop sacrifice? Oh my god, I'm tripping. It has a name, I just forgot, but yeah, I was just trying to make the double bishop sacrifice work. It's a very, very famous tactic. Yeah, and I decided to invest into it because I went ahead and played rook d5, trying to bring in more forces, right? Bring my rook over to h5, and then once my rook is on h5, that's definitely going to work. Lasker's sacrifice, okay, I'm going to believe you. So rook d5, this wasn't necessary. All I had to do was, I could have created another weakness, right? So when white's position, I could have created this weak pawn, the isolated pawn on d4, and I could have just kind of started playing against it, maybe even by doubling on the d file. So I tried to go for a pretty end, and thanks to the fact that my opponent was so down on time, he was down like, he had like minutes left on his clock at this point. It's moved 22. So as far as I remember, there might have been a second time control, so he might have had the chance to get additional time if he reaches move 40. But obviously, making 18 moves in a position that's so difficult to play, you know, close to impossible, right? So he immediately makes a blunder, blunders opponent d4, and now over here, I guess he realized that he can't really take. And if he takes, this just ends it, right? Long diagonal gets exposed and the game is over. So he did not take on d4, he gave up another pawn on c3, and this is where I can basically conclude the game by saying that I'm up 2 pawns. My position is actually still better. The knight finally came out, guys, guess what? The knight finally came out onto f4. It only costed white 2 pawns, right? And yeah, my opponent tried some tactics. Unfortunately, nothing really works. We traded into almost an endgame. And here, I realized that white king is still very weak, right? I can even with just 3 pieces, it's actually going to be enough for me to to go ahead and help myself to the king. And the king, after making a glorious march all the way down to h6, unfortunately was brutally murdered by my pieces. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is probably going to conclude my relatively short but hopefully informative lecture on how to punish positional mistakes, right? We looked at 2 examples today. The first example was about my opponent creating weaknesses in his position and then further making his situation worse by closing the position down, killing off his pieces, you know, making it more difficult for himself to create a counterplay. In this case, it's once again about the opponent giving you a helping hand by misplacing one of his pieces so badly that it backfired. It's a Greek gift. No, not quite, because it's a double bishop sacrifice. Greek gift is just a singular bishop sacrifice on like h7 or h2. And then you follow it up with a knight check and the queen comes in. So it's not quite the same. Good games. Thanks for the lesson. Well, my pleasure. I hope you guys enjoyed this this short lecture. And yeah, be on the lookout for more streams. I do appear every now and then. And yeah, there are a lot of other very, very interesting people streaming on the St. Louis Chess Club's YouTube and Twitch channels. So do make sure you follow the channels to stay tuned or to stay informed about the upcoming streams. And on that note, I'm gonna be bidding you guys farewell. So good night, good day, take care.